You're listening to Miss Style, Strength, and Grace with Deidra Murphy. This is your one-stop shop for style, fashion, health, and fitness. Deidra's passion is to help empower women to reach their fullest potential, both inside and out. Deidra and her guests will be discussing how to develop your style, health, and lifestyle hacks to energize your day and inspire you to keep reaching higher levels of success. Deidra is a professional fashion stylist, health guru, and Mrs. Washington 2017. It's time to get open and honest with Deidra.
Hello and welcome. Today I am really excited to have a special guest on the show today. I am interviewing Dr. Chris Murphy. Dr. Chris Murphy has been helping people maximize their health for almost a decade now. He is the owner of NewEdge Wellness Center and director and co-owner of the Synergy Challenge. He is not only a well-known wellness expert, but an entrepreneur, an international best-selling author, a sought-after professional speaker, and host of the Dr. Chris Show on ACN Radio. He has been seen on ABC, CBS, and NBC. Dr. Chris travels over 25,000 miles every year professionally speaking and researching on the latest in health and wellness. His purpose in life is to help people reach their full God-given potential through the 5 foundations of health. And he's also my husband. So welcome, Dr. Chris Murphy, to Miss Style, Strength, and Grace.
Thank you, Deidra. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it as always.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. Well, my first question is obviously an answer that I know, but I want to hear so that way I can share with my listeners, why did you decide to get into chiropractic care, and tell me a little bit about your story?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. At first, I'd known chiropractic just a little bit growing up, where if I got hurt in a sports injury, playing football or something, I might go get adjusted. And it didn't really mean much to me at the time. I didn't really realize the possibility of what chiropractic really was about. And then I end up just about to get out of college, just about to graduate, and I was actually preparing to go into dental school. Thought that's where I wanted to go, and I was working for my brother at the time. He had a construction company, still does, and I was working for him, and I ended up hurting myself. I injured my shoulder, and I couldn't do that hard labor during the summer anymore, and so he found me a job with his buddy who was a chiropractor. And as I started to work for them and being basically an assistant under them, I started to see all the miracles happening. I started to see women who hadn't been able to get pregnant before finally be able to get pregnant and have a child. I saw people that had suffered with migraines and insomnia and depression overcome those things, and not just the low back pain and things like that people might think of. And so it really just opened my eyes up, and I thought to myself, okay, if I can help people working on the small area of the body called the mouth as a dentist, imagine how many more lives I could impact if I could work with the whole nervous system. And so I actually just switched gears and just took a leap of faith and enrolled and got into chiropractic school, not really knowing what chiropractic was at the time until I started to really get into the courses and the philosophy of it and understanding really the potential that chiropractic really had. And that started my profession in chiropractic and becoming a wellness expert.
I love that story, especially, I'm super thankful that you became a chiropractor rather than a dentist, because it's helped save my life. And, you mentioned the philosophy behind chiropractic. So I wanted you to share with our listeners, what is your philosophy towards chiropractic, and how is that different than just a, crack your back, out the door type of chiropractic facility?
Well, it's a great question, and really it comes down to not just a philosophy of chiropractic, but really it's a philosophy of how we approach all health, and really what I feel is the best philosophy to health in general, no matter what avenue you're going down. And that philosophy, at the most simple, just most simplistic explanation, is really allowing the body to heal itself, and not working against the body, but working with the body. And that all healing comes from within us, and it never comes from the outside in. It comes from the inside out. And so anything we can do naturally to support our body's natural healing process, then we should do that, right? And to think that we can get healthy by putting an interference in our body, for instance, a poison, also known as a medication, right? While those things have their place in time in a crisis situation, they're never designed to help our bodies heal long term, right? And our body is what does the healing. And so that's what we really focus on. And our family and our patients and our community is helping people understand that, hey, you have everything you need inside of you to heal. If you can heal a cut on your finger without you having to sit there and think about it and just repeat to yourself, heal this cut, you can go on your day, and that amazing, miraculous healing happens regardless of whether you believe in it or not, is really what we're trying to focus on, people nourishing and supporting and a lot of times rebuilding that foundation that allows your body to heal.
No, it's totally true. And I mean, you out of anyone know my story as far as how it saved my life. And, even when I was at my worst and I knew that taking a medication for anxiety was not the root of my problems, I realized that that was just going to be a patch over a deeper symptom. And, my next question is actually kind of in regards to that, but what made you switch from just seeing and viewing chiropractic care as a career into more of a mission for your life?
Yeah, so this one really comes down to seeing someone in my own life lose their health. And, when I first got into chiropractic, it was more of a profession for me. It was a way that I could help people and make a good living for my family. But it really wasn't until I met you that it became more than that. Because, see, when I first met Deidra, her health was miserable. I'm sure if you've heard any of her podcasts in the past, you've heard her story of how she was, lost her health at the age of 26. She was anxiety, depression, on medications for those things, living on antibiotics for the colds and flus and the migraine she was having all the time and the insomnia and everything. And, I would remember watching her cry herself to sleep at night because she was just so miserable. And even though I knew that she could get better, I knew that she couldn't get better until she decided really to take control of your own health. And we had those conversations before during that time. And, and thank God that, you decided to take control of your health. Because even though I love you to death, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? We'll have to make those own decisions for ourselves. And so, yeah, when you started to go through those transformations, and, I saw how it affected, your, not just your body, but it affected your family, your career, your passions, the dreams that you had for yourself. And, that was the first time I had really seen someone in my life, personally experience the day-to-day of losing your health. Even though my mother went through cancer and, I was there for that, I was younger and my parents protected me from that to a certain degree, where I didn't see necessarily all the struggles and the heartaches that she went through, versus when I saw you go through those things, that put it in a totally different perspective for me. And so, as you, I thank God every day that you made that decision to take back control of your health, and you started to rebuild the foundation to your health through the 5 principles that we teach in our office. And I started to see that transformation. And as the weeks went by and you got better and better, and the months went by and you started to make all those transformations to where now, all those things I talked about are so far in the past that probably sometimes it's tough for to even remember what that even felt like sometimes. But
I don't know. Sometimes
yeah.
I remember them very well.
Right. And so, no, absolutely. And so at some point during that transformation, that transition, it hit me that, okay, I had to do more to help people like Deidra, like you, like other families that were going through those things. And that's when it became not just a profession, but it became a mission for me, a mission for me to help individuals like yourself, for me to help families not be torn apart because someone in your life has lost their health, and for me to just educate my community to live a more productive, more abundant life in general.
I love hearing you talk about it because obviously I can see your emotion behind it. And I think too, it helps explain that somebody can look great on the outside. They can look like they're fine and healthy, but on the inside, they're just going through a ton of turmoil and they're really sick on the inside. And I think that's what really comes down to chiropractic and the nervous system is, you don't know what's going on beneath the surface.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned it here just a second ago, but the 5 foundations of remarkably healthy people. That's what we teach not only in our office, but you also wrote a book on it. And so I wanted to reach on those for a few minutes. What are the 5 foundations that you teach both in the book and in your clinic?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the book is the 5 foundations of remarkably healthy people. And really the reason I wrote that book is to give people a better understanding of what real health is. And, a lot of times people get confused with really what chiropractic is, because you can go into one chiropractor and you get one thing, and you go just down the street or down the next door to another chiropractor, you get something totally different. But really the most foundational principle of chiropractic is getting to the cause, right? Not treating a symptom. And even in chiropractic, you can get into that model where it is just a pain model, a pain relief model, which really comes down to just covering up a symptom. And at a certain point, it becomes a really expensive aspirin, right? Because we could just numb you up with morphine and you could feel nothing, right? Have no pain, but also have no quality of life at the same time. And so when we look at those 5 foundations, it's really important to start to rebuild the foundation of your health, because after so long of just maybe having the wrong habits in your lifestyle, just having things that have happened in your life, maybe in your control, sometimes out of your control, it just starts to break down our body enough that it starts to break down that foundation. And well, we all know what happens to a home or a building with a bad foundation. It just starts to crumble and fall apart. And so we got to start to rebuild that. And so number 1 foundation is function. And so function really comes back down to the nervous system, and not just patching the nervous system, but helping that restore itself, helping retrain the nervous system so that your body can heal, whether it be, damaged tissue that's creating pain in your body, or for your heart to beat, or your stomach to digest food, or your lungs to breathe, or for your immune system to fight off cancer. Just allowing that brain-body connection to function at its best, as close to 100% as we can. Because, to be honest, there's people out there that, have had damage going on for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And there's just certain things you can't get back. Like, although we have amazing miracles happen in our office and are able to help a lot of people, both in the office and virtually as well, there's certain limitations to matter. Meaning there's certain things you can't get back. We maybe not can't get you back to where you were when you were 5 years old, but we can definitely get you back to, 80, 90% of where you were, and that drastically improves your quality of life. So we really work at that. We work at rebuilding that foundation. We take pre and post x-rays and go through rehab and support the system, the glue that holds the nervous system together, which is the soft tissue as well, and just work at rebuilding that. And then we also look at the next one, which is food. So food really comes down to what you're putting in your body. A lot of times people nowadays are putting in a lot of processed preservatives, tons of sugar, just all kinds of crud that, we just don't need in our bodies. It really doesn't allow our nervous system to function well. And like all these other foundations, they just help support our body's ability to heal. And so food, really important there. And then we also look at fitness. And so fitness is key. Some people just don't get any of it, which is a problem. And then some of us are, we're going through the motions, but we're not really getting the most out of our exercise. Or in our day, in our culture today, we're just so stressed. We don't have enough time, right? You're running around, you're taking the kids to practice, you're taking them to school, you're picking them up, you're working, you're preparing food for your family, all these things. And, a lot of times you just don't have that time for fitness, but you're still trying to put in an hour, 2 hours on the treadmill, doing the wrong things that are working against your body, that are taking way more time than you actually need to get the results that you want. And so really helping people understand that, working with your body, not against your body, to where you can get the workouts you need, get in the shape you need, in as little as really 10 minutes a day. And that's really a lot of the principles that you teach, I know, with the Synergy Challenge as well, as being efficient and getting that taken care of. And then the next one we talk about is filter. And so filter really comes down to toxins, and it comes down to keeping toxins out of your environment, out of your life, out of your body. But then also, if you have those toxins, being able to get those out of your body safely. Because a lot of times they get built up over our lives. We have things like called bioaccumulation, where you think like a little toxin here, a little toxin there, not that big a deal. Oh, if I have a Big Mac once in a while, if I have that medication, that Advil once in a while, it's not a big deal. But then these things actually accumulate in our bodies. And so being able to safely get those out is a huge one. Toxicity is one of the biggest things I see in affecting Americans and people in general, especially women, because it targets the thyroid and other physiological problems with your hormones. And then also the last one, which might be one of the most important foundations, is freedom. And this is freedom in your spiritual life, freedom in your finances, freedom in your relationships, just really allowing you not to get overtaken by the different forms of stress emotionally that we can have in our everyday lives. And really understanding, okay, how do we perceive those stresses? How can we create new habits in our life that can diminish the stress load that we put on ourselves on a daily basis as well? So really, in a nutshell, those are the 5 foundations. It's function, food, fitness, filter, and freedom. And we just look at, okay, how are you doing in those areas? What are the areas you're struggling with the most? And to start to help rebuild those foundations.
I love it. And it's like each foundation is kind of pieces to the whole, like a part of a puzzle. And, if you're missing pieces here and there, you're never going to have the complete picture.
Exactly. So a lot of people, they look at those 5 foundations and they look at it as a buffet line. They say, okay, which one of these can I just take? Like, I really want the food one, so I'm going to just take that one, but I'm going to neglect the function or the filter. And it doesn't work like that. Our health depends on all of those things being in balance as much as possible. It's not about being perfect at those things, because none of us are perfect. I know I'm not. And living with you, I know that neither one of us are, although you're pretty dang close, but yeah, we all got to work at these things, and it's not about being perfect, but it's about being consistent. And that's the biggest thing I see is people oftentimes are not consistent with what they're doing. They might put a lot of energy into something and not getting a whole lot of results out of it. It's kind of like the analogy of going to the gym. So you can go to the gym and you can work out for 9 or 10 hours straight, right? Put a lot of energy and effort into trying to make a change in your body, but at the end of the day, you're no different. Versus when you're consistent at the gym, even just working out maybe like 10 minutes a day, but you're consistent 5 to 6 days a week, well, now you're going to start to see those changes. And even though you might have only put in a small fraction amount of that time, but you're being consistent at it. And it's like anything. That's where we get the long-lasting changes, and that's where I see people's health start to transform. It's not always, unfortunately, it's not always on our time frame. Like, we want to be well, like today. It takes time for the body to heal, just like anything. But that's so important, that consistency.
Absolutely. Well, just like what you said about, you want to be healing today. It's like the people that want to start working out or getting into the best shape of their life, they want to be in that bikini body yesterday, not 3 months from now, but it does take that consistent work. It's every day, like little things here and there, eating the elephant one bite at a time, as I like to say.
Yes.
So I wanted to briefly go through each of the 5 foundations and just give like 1 to 2 tips for people on how they can start making changes in those aspects, and not just for people that might be in our location, because obviously we have people that might be able to come in to the office and get checked out, but for near and far, if somebody's listening in Timbuktu, how can they make changes with their nervous system and so on throughout the 5 foundations?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really loaded question, because there are so many things out there that you could do, and everyone's a little different. So for one person, it might be one thing. For the other person, it's a no-brainer to do this other thing. But I'm just going to give the most common things that I see then, and it's really key too. And, a lot of these tips and different things we can do and talk about, you can even listen to on my podcast as well, which is Happy, Healthy Hormones. So that's a great resource as well. But when we talk about number 1 with function, one of the best ones there is making sure that you are taking care of your nervous system. And the simplest thing is going to a chiropractor that does pre and post x-rays that can at least evaluate where your nervous system is at. And if there is a dysfunction in that nervous system, that they can get it back to as close to 100% as possible, because you're only as good as what's going on between the ears and that connection to the rest of your body. So that is one of the biggest things with function that you could do. The second one with food, one of the most important things with this is just getting back to the basics and eating as raw as you can. And I'm not talking about like sushi raw. I'm talking about like with your veggies, right? So, trying to eat, like when you look at your plate, and no matter what meal it is, at least 50% of that plate should be raw veggies, right? And I'm not saying you have to be a meat eater or a vegetarian or either. I mean, we both eat meat. If you can be a vegetarian too, it's just as long as you're doing it the right way, but just making sure you're getting those nutrients in your body, because the fact is, when you're already getting it from the grocery store, it's already at least a week old, and as soon as that plant is removed from the source of its life force, it starts to decrease in the nutrient value. And so when we're getting stuff, it's already depleted. Then if you cook it, it's even more depleted. So a lot of us are just malnutrition, really, even though you're eating a lot of food and you're like, oh, Dr. Chris, I've got plenty extra around the waist, I'm not malnutrition. Yeah, you actually can be. There's a difference between being overweight and being malnutrition. So
I like that, overfed but undernourished.
Yes, absolutely. And so that happens so much with our standard American diet. So that's one of the biggest ones. And with that too is just trying to eat as organic as you can, trying to eat as pure as you can, keeping out the preservatives. And, I know it can be a little more expensive sometimes to eat organically, but in the long term, it pays off in dividends. And a lot of times you can even find the deals and, find the organic that's on sale. And if you have to eat the conventional, we'll find the ones that are the least toxic, but there's ways to do that and there's resources to do that as well. And then when we look at fitness as well, so we look at that, and this is a key one. So the biggest thing I would recommend of that is just get up the intensity. A lot of us, we get through the motions. We just get into the gym. We get into our tune, our rhythm. We got our podcast going or whatever, but it's just like not a high intensity enough. And all the research shows that actually you don't start to get the benefit from working out like you need to until you get to that 60 to 80% of your max heart rate. And really it's closer to that 80%. And so when you look at that, is just, you don't have to do long periods of high intensity, but I'm talking like 10 minutes, 20 minutes tops of a workout if you need to, doing like 20-second reps as hard as you can, resting for 10 seconds, or going for a minute as hard as you can and taking a minute break. Just get out there and do it though, because it's really easy to be intimidated and say, well, hey, I haven't worked out in a long time, or maybe I've never worked out before and I'm going to be sore. Is it going to hurt? There's a lot of myths out there around working out and high intensity workouts. And it's just getting out there and doing it, because that's one of the biggest keys to helping rebalance your hormones, fat burning hormones especially. And then we also look at, filter, when we look at that, one of the biggest things is just cleaning up what you're putting on your body, especially for women. Women use more personal products than men, obviously. But when we look at this, and this is key, because it's not just about what you're putting in your body, but it's what you're putting on your body. Your skin is your largest organ and it absorbs everything. And so, looking at, do these things have parabens in them? Or these things have other harsh chemicals that are going to create cancer or disrupt my endocrine system, which is your hormone system? And it's crazy how much just toxicity there is just in this simple thing. And so really I like to go to either what's called EWG.org, which is, it's called the Environmental Working Group, but you can actually plug in your products there and actually see if they are toxic. They have like their own little scale, like green is like not toxic, all the way up to like red is super toxic. And you can see, okay, is my stuff good or is it bad? And if not, okay, well, let's find some stuff that's not bad and just start changing that like one product at a time.
Yeah, and ladies, I've used this website numerous times myself, and literally you can plug in the exact product name. Like if it's Estee Lauder or Double Wear makeup, like you can put it in there and see how toxic it is. And actually that's what I used to wear, and now I don't wear that anymore because I realized it was really bad for my skin. Anyway, so I'll let Chris finish out with
and the last one is just with the freedom is just, getting control of your time. Not letting time control you, but putting the most emphasis on the things that are most important for you, and those being your big rock. So if you're wanting to get healthy, to lose weight, balance your hormones, then do the things that are going to get you there and make those a priority, whether it's getting that workout in, preparing your food, just being consistent with that.
I love it. Those are some great tips. And, those were really helpful to me when I first started to make a lot of these changes, as I started to educate myself. And, what's funny is I used to be a fragrance or perfume maniac. I had endless bottles of perfume. And when I started to educate myself on how toxic perfumes are, they're one of the most toxic things we can actually put on our body. And what's funny is it's one of the most gifted items as well, especially around the holidays. I don't wear perfume anymore. I'll sometimes make my own blend of like oils or use like vanilla oil and things like that. But every day I don't even wear perfume anymore. People are always surprised by that.
I know, you always smell so good. I'm like, what? Are you wearing perfume? Nope, she didn't. So doing good there.
I just have that natural smell, especially right after I work out. Oh yeah, it's lovely. So I did want to kind of switch gears a little bit. most of my listeners are female, and I have a lot of women reach out to me specifically, especially after I've done like a Facebook Live or a video and I've shared a little bit about my story. And a lot of women specifically ask, like, how did I rebalance my hormones? So I wanted to touch on that for a little bit. There's a lot of things that contribute to a woman developing a hormonal imbalance, whether it's giving birth, anxiety, stress, causing that sleeplessness. Where can women start rebalancing their hormones?
Well, really, that's a great question. And it really comes down to rebuilding that foundation. And we keep coming back to that, but it's so important because, you can take different supplements and different hormone replacements and things to help supplement your body. But at the end of the day, if you're not rebuilding that foundation, then, when those things stop, you're going to just go back to the same symptoms, the same problems you're having before. And then it's going to create a long-term problem because eventually those things are going to stop working and they're going to be in a lot bigger problem situation, whether that be the cancer or whatever chronic disease that develops, because there's a lot of them. But really just, getting back to the basics and saying, okay, where out of those 5 foundations am I lacking the most? What can I do to get those things back on track? Starting to get the right type of workout so it starts to rebuild those fat-burning hormones, your insulin, your growth hormone, those things that are really important to help restore your body. And, at that point, once you get that foundation, then you can start to implement some other things, or you can do those in conjunction with maybe some natural supplements, whether you're doing different types of herbs or compounds there that will actually help support the body's hormonal process, because sometimes you're so burnt out, you got to do some things to help assist that in that way. But a lot of times you can just get into the basics and just be consistent with it. That's the biggest thing, because it takes at least 3 months minimum for your physiology, like whether it be your endocrine system, your GI, whatever, to start to recoup itself. Some people, it might be 6 months, it might be a year, it might be even longer, but you've got to start with that and give yourself a chance.
And that's totally true. I mean, I'm a testimony to that. It took me a good, 6 months or more to even start to feel better, to start to sleep again, and I look back and it's still been years where it's like, oh, I'm just now still getting consistent with my sleep or different patterns that are going on with my hormones. I did want to talk about a little bit about detoxifying and not just when it comes to like detoxifying with the products that we're using, but how can maybe doing like a cleanse or a detox actually help with resetting the hormones?
Well, again, you asked some really good loaded questions, because I could spend a whole segment on that. We're running out of time. So really the biggest thing is, number one is you've got to understand, okay, how toxic you are. It's not as important as finding out what type of toxicity all the time. Sometimes it is, but usually it's just a matter of figuring out how to get it out, because the systems are the same. You need to do something to chelate, pull those toxins out, flush them out of your body, help restore your toxicity systems, which are going to be like your kidney, your liver, your colon. Another big one. You got to do it in the right order too. You've got to prep things first. You got to prep the body. Then you got to start to detox the superficial stuff. Then you can get into the more heavy stuff to like detox the brain and the blood-brain barriers and things. But it takes a process, and there's a difference between a detox and a cleanse. And so a cleanse, I think that's what really is 90% out there in the market, where people get caught up and they'll call it a detox. And it's really just losing some quick weight, but it's not really a long-term fix. So really do it the right way. Just don't go out there and just start taking some supplements, because you might get some short-term results, but you're not going to get a long-term fix.
Absolutely. It's more than just a little juice cleanse, right?
Exactly. They can be great, but again, what are you looking to do?
And then my last question when it comes to like hormonal imbalances was, I just wanted to know if women don't start to get these things fixed, with the, not just like the adverse effects here and the now, like sleeplessness, weight gain, anxiety, long term, what can hormonal imbalances have problems with?
Well, we talk about, number one, physical, but then I think just as important is, how does it affect your personal life, right? Like, how does it affect your relationships? I mean, we saw how that went through when you were struggling with that, and it affects your relationship with your friends, your family, your spouses, your kids, all these things. And that's not necessarily a short-term. Like short-term, that can create problems, but I think long-term that creates bigger problems. And then long-term physically, you're looking at the cancers, you're looking at the heart disease, you're looking at the autoimmune diseases and digestive problems, all these things you think like that's from hormonal imbalance? Like, yeah, all those things can be from hormonal imbalance because, the systems from your hormones and your digestive system and these other physiological areas of your body, they're all connected. And when one gets offset, it starts to affect the other ones as well. And so, you can put up with symptoms for so long until eventually you just can't take it anymore. But it's so much easier to prevent a disease than trying to overcome one.
I love that. So I have a few questions that I typically ask a lot of my interviewees, and I wanted to kind of switch gears into that for a little bit. I just wanted to know, what are you binging on when it comes to your favorite resource? Maybe it's a book, a podcast, like what helps you motivate yourself?
Well, there's a lot out there. Like right now I'm listening to a lot of Tony Robbins, and I love that because he hits on all things. I think physical, spiritual, entrepreneurial, everything. But really too, I like to hit on the health experts too as well, so that I'm always sharpening my tool, because whatever industry you're in, you got to sharpen the tool. So whether it's I'm listening to something from Dr. Josh Axe or Dr. Chris Zano, or, looking at, Dr. Oz and McCullough, whatever it is, there's a lot of resources out there, but just really trying to sift through what's BS and what's actually real truth is really key. And so like, those are just some of the things that I'm looking at and going through. But yeah, right now it's like mentally headspace for people is what I'm really trying to focus on right now. So Tony Robbins is a great one that I'm looking at.
That's the same for me too. Couple more questions. Who has been your greatest influencer and mentor? And then I'd also like to know your top 3 core values.
So probably one of my greatest mentors, well, man, is really just failure. It's not any one person, but just, failure is really your greatest teacher. Something that I really kind of realized here in just the recent past. And so really the more you can fail, the more you'll learn, and the faster you'll get to where you want to go. So, if you're failing at weight loss, you're failing at your health, you're failing in your, relationships, whatever it is, it's like, learn from those. Just don't say, okay, woe is me, I can never do this. What can we learn from them? And I think that'd always be our greatest teacher, our greatest mentor.
Ooh, then I've had plenty of learning opportunities, apparently.
Sweet.
And then what were your 3 core values?
Yeah, so my 3 core values are really my health, my family, and really just being able to be honest and truthful with people, and so those are the things that I just lead by so that I can impact the most people and be there for my family.
I love that. And then my last question that I have been asking all of my guests on the show is, what does it mean to do things with style and grace?
Yeah, so I think for doing things with style and grace, I think is about not being perfect for sure, because if you're going to have style, you got to have some faults and failure, right, to really learn what your style is. And I think this, even attaching this to health, it's really about just being, again, coming back to being consistent and being confident and certain in what you're doing in life. And when you're certain in life, you're going to create your own style. And when you're certain in life and consistent with that, you're going to create that grace. You're going to have that consistency, and you're going to be able to lead people in whatever field or whatever it is you're doing, whether it be your family or whether it be, thousands of people that you, oversee or help.
I love that. And I think it's always interesting when I ask my male clients or male interviewees that question. So where can my listeners find you? What resources can you give them?
Yeah, so there's a couple areas. They can go to newedgewellness.com, or they can, go onto our podcast and subscribe and listen to that, which is Happy Healthy Hormones with Dr. Chris. So those are like probably the 2 best ways, and have free resources on there, and just a lot of knowledge we try to pack in there and just try to impact people the best we can in those 2 areas.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you again for being on my show, and I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I love you.
Love you too.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey ladies, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. To help empower more women, please be a doll and rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. For show notes and other free resources we mentioned today, go to styledbydeidra.com.